you'll bookmark it. This is Steve with MAC Systems, the Commander software. Today is November 21st, and this is a marine demo that we are doing for a group of dealers that I assume received a mailer from us. I'm going to go through the software today. The way I do these presentations, guys, is that it's your demo, so I really do want you to ask questions as we go. If you feel that you want to redirect, I do have a format that I use to just make things a little bit more simple so that we cover most of the material that I feel like we need to cover in these demos to get your questions answered. So we'll go through in and out of a PowerPoint that I have here. It's a PowerPoint presentation, and then I also go in and out of live views of the software to perform different functions so you can see the software actually running and see how the navigation style looks like. So we'll do that as we go. So software is called Commander, and it is a Windows-based product. That means we're going to be running on a Windows network. If you have Macs, we can run on a Mac. We simply need you to load Parallels on a Mac. That'll create a Windows environment. So we're programming in Microsoft programming languages. It's a SQL database running in .NET, for those of you that are familiar with that. C++ is most of the code. All of our technical support, our programming, is all here. Our sales office is done here in Southern California. So geographically, we're located right between Los Angeles and San Diego. And all of our support is done here. So our tech support hours typically are from 7 a.m. Until 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We do have some folks that start as early as 6 a.m. So we get pretty good support coverage every day except Sunday. We currently have around 3,000 installations in 10 different countries, and so this product is doing incredibly well around the world. We actually have dealers as far away as Perth, Australia. We have them in Mallorca, Spain, different places, that are all have reached out to us to use Commander. One of the selling points, one of the key selling points, I think, to the software is the fact that we can preload all these manufacturers' parts price books into the system. So all your major OEMs and distributors can be loaded into the software ahead of you starting out. This means that all the parts and prices are preloaded. They're already there. When you go to look up a part number or use a barcode scanner, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, all those parts are going to be preloaded into the database for you, and we keep you updated with current pricing. Thank you. Ryan says I spelled Tohatsu incorrectly, so I'll correct that in my next demo. I appreciate that. What we do is we load the price files through a desktop price file loader, and this is how the price files are delivered. And we have this app to the desktop of your server. Now, this app basically is something that you're going to use to load updates, and it's actually connected to our server here in California where we host the files. For example, if there's a new Mercury file and we have an update, and we'll talk about how often we do these updates, you'd be looking to load the Mercury file. You click on Mercury, and then, of course, you can check for an update. And then that's going to ping our server, grab the file, and move it onto your computer and update your prices automatically for you. Now, with Mercury, we understand that they do weekly updates. A number of you are probably Mercury dealers that are in this demo. They have weekly updates that you can download directly into Commander, or we will host a monthly update for you. So once a month, you'll be able to download a price update. One of the key things, too, with costing or pricing is that we don't charge for the updates. So it doesn't matter if you're downloading 12 updates a year or 50 updates a year, depending on how many suppliers you have. The pricing is not going to be any different. You don't pay per update. And that's very different to some of the business.
All right. Great.
Now, the price books will land in yellow folders like you see on the left-hand side here. So this is the format that we use. Think of this as your library of price books, if you wish, all stacked on top of each other here. And you're only going to have a folder for each supplier that you pick from the list that we have. So if you're a Yamaha, Mercury, Evinrude, Land & Sea, Donovan, whatever, you'll have a price book for each one. Tohatsu, in the case of Ryan. Back at you, Ryan. this will be where your price books are gonna reside. To look in that price book, all you're going to do is click on that yellow folder, like I just clicked on Mercury here, and you're going to see a list of the Mercury parts and prices that all reside in that folder. This is also how we put inventory into the system. If I want to go to Land and Sea, single click on the yellow folder that says Land and Sea there is going to put me in my Land and Sea parts and prices. And as I go through this, you're going to notice that the majority of the parts are loaded with a part number. There's a UPC code. That means we can use a barcode scanner. There's a description, a cost price, and a list price. You can set the selling price to whatever you want it to be, and there's 9 other points that you can customize. So in total, you've got 10 customizable selling price points. You can either manually enter a price, or you can use formulas in the program, which we won't get into in great detail. But every time the price book loads, it runs it through a series of rules, and these rules are designed to recalculate price points for you. So if your selling price, for example, is shown the way mine is shown here, where it says calculate my selling price and make that equal to the list price multiplied by 1.1, that's going to, of course, add 10% to the regular retail price. You can also put in conditions if you want to, where you only apply that percentage to parts that fall in a certain price range. You know, give me an extra 10% if the part is less than $100, but don't do it over $100. We do 99-cent rounding if you want to round everything up to 99 cents, or nickel rounding, quarter rounding. There's all kinds of interesting things that people do with their pricing. But just to give you an idea of what it takes to put inventory in for the first time in Commander, you're going to pick up an item, you're going to hit it with your barcode scanner. That item's going to come right up, and you're going to simply enter your stock. Let's say I have 2, and I choose to put in a bin location because I want to put in the row and shelf that it's in. So I'll put in a row and shelf number there. And now we've loaded the part number in as a stocked item. So it utilizes the price book data to create its inventory item. This is also a place where I can print a barcode label. So we'll come back to the PowerPoint for just a second here, and we'll go through a couple of the peripheral devices. Now, most of you, if you're going to run small networks under 10 users, are not going to need a full-blown Windows server. Now, if you have a server, we'll, of course, load Commander on the server. If not, we'll use a high-powered desktop to act as a server. It can be a Windows 10 machine running either Windows 10, 7, or 8, typically a 64-bit machine. And then we network it. Like I said, it's a local network, so we don't need the internet to run. If the internet goes down, Commander just runs fine. In fact, it runs a lot faster than pretty much all the cloud-hosted systems you'll see offered by our competitors. So we'll talk a little bit about barcode scanners, barcode printers, and so forth, because of the fact that the majority of your manufacturer's parts already have labels on them. So those are going to be key for us. The barcode scanner that we like to use is a wireless scanner. The one that we're currently selling is a Honeywell 1902. And this is a pretty expensive scanner, but we have refurbished ones here for just under $300. But if you look at the scanners here, this is kind of what they look like, and different suppliers offer them without the base. This is more or less what they look like when you're buying them complete. So you can see them, you'll see them anywhere from $700 to $900. Like I said, we do have them for under $300, but they're a wireless Bluetooth scanner that sits in a base like this. And of course, you can pick it up, scan items into inventory, scan them onto the invoices, and so forth. The reason why we like this particular scanner is we do have a feature in Commander that allows you to import the scan, so you can walk around with the scanner, take a physical inventory, and collect a file to the actual scanner. And then you can bring it in and dump it into the system, so it creates physical inventory count sheets for you. So our traditional method of creating count sheets back in the day used to be, okay, let's do our physical inventory, let's create our count sheets, and let's do it in whatever sequence we choose to do it. So bin or part number sequence only, and we would generate and create count sheets for our physical inventory. They would typically look like this if we printed them. And then you could have somebody go around, count the items, put the bin location in, and then come back to this grid and enter your count. So you go ahead and enter a 2, and you could apply the count, of course, when you were done. Sorry, I just want to eliminate some background noise on my side, guys. So that was the way we do physical inventory traditionally, but with that scanner, what happens is the item counts are going to be populated already on the count sheet. So it does save some time, and it drops them right into this grid. And then when the physical inventory is over, it's all said and done. We do give you a really nice report called a plus and minus adjustment report. And this is where you'll see how accurate your inventory was by line items. If I had a $122 item, I thought I had 7. I counted, there were only 6. So there's a -1 adjustment here on this line item where that inventory item shrinks from 859 to 737 as a value for that particular line item. So it's giving you all of your inventory summary detail, but it does it by line item and then gives you your totals at the bottom so you can see how accurate your physical inventory was. The other thing, of course, is that because your items are in Commander at the right price, at any time you choose to, you can see the inventory, your inventory cost. So this would be the valuation of your inventory. I can open up a report in Commander and ask for my on-hand quantity, let's say greater than 0. That's everything that I have at least 1 or more on the shelf. So if I view that report, this will give it to me by supplier and give me an extended cost value. So it multiplies the on-hand quantity by the cost, extends out the price for me, and then tells me how many line items I have. 109 pieces for all island, $17,000. This report, by the way, was 248 pages. It generated in about 1.5 seconds. So I like to run mine with a large inventory just to show you that the system runs really fast, unlike systems that a lot of the competitors that I have will run their systems with 5, 6, 7 items in it, and then when you go to use it, you wonder why yours is running so slow. I've got $928,000 in inventory, and this was a 248-page report. And we use Crystal Reports, which displays everything to the screen and also gives you the option to export the data out. Anytime you want to export a report out, all our reports export out into Excel if you choose to manipulate the data and do other things with it. So that's your inventory and cost report. Over in the items section here, where we put that item into stock, we can right-click on the item and print ourselves a barcode label if we choose to. So we do print barcode labels. So a lot of the product, remember, has a UPC code on it, so we don't need to print a label. But if we want to label product or possibly put the price on it, we have the option to print a barcode label if we choose to do that. We utilize a couple of different models of barcode printer. I know that after this demo, there's probably some folks that have printers already. These are fairly model specific so that they're plug and play. So either a Zebra ZP450 or LP2844. There's another model we use also. So if you're uncertain about whether or not the hardware that you already have will work with Commander, just check in with me on what you have, and I'll let you know. But this is what the labels look like here. There's 3 labels on the left-hand side here, and you can see how the price would print on the item. I'm not a huge fan of putting pricing on items just because the pricing changes so rapidly, then you have to relabel it. So that can become an issue also. At the item level, we also have the ability to set stocking levels. We call these min-maxes. For those of you that are familiar with that concept, you just set a minimum stocking level. Let's say I set my minimum at 2 and my maximum at 6. That's letting the system know if I fall below 2, I want to order back to 6. So I always want somewhere between 2 and 6 on my shelf, but I don't want to run out of that item. Now, it doesn't do that automatically. I'll show you in a second after we sell it how the stock order is generated. It's a very simple little routine that you run. But let's go to the invoicing module here, the point of sale module on the left. You'll see a cash register. I'm going to right-click Start a New Invoice. You can force your employees to enter an employee ID so that you can see who sold the part. And then, of course, you can pick up your scanner and go ahead and just scan the item. If you have more than one supplier that has that item, Commander will show you. So in this case, I'm a Land & Sea and a Donovan dealer. I have Land & Sea stock, though, so it defaults to the one that I stock, and I can select and sell the item. I go straight to the checkout window. Typically, it wouldn't stop at that prompt. if I just had one supplier. So selling an item is just as simple as scanning it and printing the ticket. That takes all of 5 to 7 seconds to sell an item with almost minimal touches on the keyboard or the mouse. When you're selling multiple items, you can just pick up your scanner and scan them one after the other. You don't even have to touch the keyboard at all. When we print the sales ticket, you're going to see that we have a plain paper invoice. This is your sort of traditional, laser printer. Your logo, of course, can load into Commander, as you can see, so it'll print at the top if you want your artwork or your logo to print. And then we also have the option to print a small footprint receipt. And it appears that I closed, oh, there it is over there on my other screen. Okay. We have the option to print a small footprint receipt. This is your thermal receipt, and this is really just a money saver, because if you do heavy volume at the parts counter, you're going to be burning through toner cartridge and paper pretty quickly. So with a small footprint printer like this, you're printing a thermal receipt, just like they have at the grocery store. And of course, you don't need to buy toner cartridge. You can pick up 3 rolls of thermal labels for thermal paper for about $10 at Staples. So that'll save you spending $64 on toner cartridge at the counter. This small footprint printer also ties together with a cash drawer. So if you need to kick open a cash drawer, a lot of dealerships that I go into still are using a cash register, but you no longer need a cash register because Commander is going to take care of that for you. It's going to break out your sales into different categories and work as a full point of sale system. So I'll show you how that works here in just a second. If we went back to sell this item a second time and we were to scan it onto the ticket, and we'll go ahead and sell it, we have the option now to also search for an existing customer in our system. So this system allows you to do it by a customer last name or first name, phone number, or whatever. So I looked for Barker, and there's 3 of them. I'll choose my name here. Of course, you can add a customer in the point of sale mode right on the fly. So if you need to add a customer, put their address, put their phone number and email in there, so you can do that also. Now we're tied together with QuickBooks, so for those of you that have a customer list in QuickBooks, we'll be reverse syncing it across into Commander so that your customers will already be here. The ones that are in QuickBooks will already display in Commander. You won't have to re-add those customers. Similarly, if you add a customer to Commander for the first time, it's also going to add that customer to QuickBooks. Now we'll go to the checkout window. This customer must have just purchased a boat or purchased something because they've got a $19,000 balance here. So it's showing me their outstanding balance in QuickBooks. If you carry an accounts receivable and you're giving people terms, the balance from QuickBooks reverse syncs into Commander and also displays in the checkout window. In here, we can apply a different payment method. Our payment methods are on the side here. So if the guy gives me cash, let's say he gives me $100, and I add that payment, Commander will make change for you. So you can see the $61.43 down there in the bottom right. You can do split payments if he wants to pay some with cash, some with check, credit card. You can do that also. Credit card payment can be applied down here. We're integrated with OpenEdge. It's an X-Charge client, essentially running with Global Eastern or global payment systems. But this is a way that we can invoice it out, not have to type in the customer's address, and of course just have the customer insert their credit card into the chip reader. It's all loaded and ready to go with the dollar amount and so forth. And of course it's going to process through and kick back the approval code and print the invoice. And again, I'm just printing on plain paper here so that we can see it on the screen. Printing on the thermal receipt is really, really simple. You'll see that all you're going to do is just change it and say, oh, I want to print on receipt paper. There's no real additional coding to do, and you're going to get that different type of receipt. So I just reprinted it, and there you can kind of, I'll zoom in on it a little bit there. Some of the printers allow you to load a logo at the top, but none of those look very good anyway when you print them on those thermal receipt printers. Now, we only had 2 in stock, so at this particular point, if we went back to our items screen, we're going to see it refresh, and we're going to notice that we no longer have this item in stock. Our stock here is down to 0. Stock here where we added is down to 0. So it took it out of stock for us. And it also recorded our sales history down here at the bottom. There's a sales history tab. So anytime we want to see how many of a particular item we've sold within a certain period of time, are we making money on that item? Do we want to view it seasonally? Do we just want to view it for the year? I'm viewing year to date, so from January through November. And I view that item. It shows me here that I sold 2, and one was sold just as a generic counter sale because I didn't take the customer's name. The other one was sold to Steve Barker. Together, for both items, I paid $43, and my sale price was $73. I generated a profit of $60 on that item. Now, if I was running my stock order and I went ahead and said, check my min-maxes, and I previewed it, it picks up the fact that I should order 6 of that particular item because of my min-maxes. So if I do say go ahead and put that on my ordering pad, it sends it to a digital notepad called the PO pad or purchase order pad. And this is where it goes before we order it. So right before we order parts, all the items that need to be ordered for stock, all the customer special orders, all the parts being ordered for work orders in process will all land on the PO pad. And this is a spot where you can actually view, right here below the black line in the middle of the screen, you can view the logic that the system is using to calculate why that part would actually be ordering. So we can see that our stock is down to 0. We can see our min-max of 2 and 6, and we can see the order of 6 that it's trying to place for us. And if we don't like it because the sales history lets us know, we also put the sales history tab here. So that sales history tab would have let us know that we only have 2 in stock, or at least, that we've only sold 2 all year. So in all likelihood, we're not going to order 6. We would change our order quantity, reduce it, possibly reduce our min-max, make some changes to it here. So you can intelligently control, your orders and make intelligent ordering decisions based on sales history and adjust your min-maxes on the fly. Of course, if we come back and try and sell that item again, we don't have any in stock at this stage. So any attempt to try and sell it at this point by part number is going to prompt us and say, you don't have it, do you want to special order it? I could say yes, choose a customer's name that I was ordering it for, and go to the checkout window. In this particular case, this customer must be getting a different tax code. Let me just change it here. And they must have cost pricing because this item here, let's just try a different customer here. All right, so we have a $36 item, just like before, down at the bottom. When we go to the checkout window, the customer's deposit, it kicks in. So if you're in the habit of collecting 100%, it's going to ask for all the money because we're going to special order it. You can, of course, change the deposit amount to 50% or a different dollar amount. So maybe you know the guy and you're just going to zero it out, and he can just pay me on pickup. But I'll go ahead at this point just with 100% deposit. And let's say we're going to go ahead and put it on his account. So we're going to go ahead and invoice it out. So we didn't collect any money. And of course, the receipt that prints will reflect that that customer didn't give us any money. It's a deposit. And so there would be, in this particular case, we're going to go through 0 due on pickup because they paid us. Actually, that wasn't correct. Let's see. Go to the PO pad, you're going to see the item show up here. On the PO pad, you'll see that part for that customer showed up right here. So we can actually see that that customer has a part that needs to be ordered. Freddie Adams, a special order part from invoice number 1863. So again, the PO pad is just collecting the items that need to be ordered. All right, we're going to shoot over to service, guys. Does anybody have any questions on the point of sale stuff? It's all pretty straightforward. I mean, it does all the stuff that you'd expect it to do, special orders parts. It takes things out of inventory for you, applies different payment methods. Any questions on any of that?
Yes, please.
So,
Steve?
Yes.
I wondered if when I saw the total of what QuickBooks balance was holding, would that customer then be able to pay that or us request that at that time?
Yeah, the question, guys, I'll repeat it so everybody can hear it. If somebody wanted to make a payment on their account, And I think that's the question, right?
No, if they came in to purchase a part and we created that invoice to sell them that part and we see that balance, can it be paid at that same time, same transaction?
There's a payment on account item that we have. I'm not sure that it can be done on the same transaction. I'll have to look and see, because obviously we have a dollar amount due on that ticket.
Right.
So we want to settle that particular transaction and close it. It requires some method of payment to close that particular ticket. But if the customer wants to pay their balance through Commander, their QuickBook balance, we did create a payment on account item. So there is a way to apply a payment and have the payment push across to QuickBooks without actually affecting your sales figures, because the real issue with that, doing it on the same transaction, has to do with that particular transaction is in the sales type on that transaction is kind of a counter sale. It's recording the fact that you're selling something. And I think you're limited to one sale type on it. So you would have to, in essence, you'd have to create a receipt for them, I think, and apply the payment on a separate ticket. I think that's the answer.
Okay, and would that be through Commander or have to switch to QuickBooks?
No, it can be done through Commander.
Okay.
Yeah, there are times, of course, when, you know, the accounting folk aren't there and then somebody comes in on the weekend, and, you know, we don't want to let our parts and service people necessarily into our accounting system. So you might have a scenario where, you know, they come in, they can see they have a balance due, and they just want to make a payment on account. And so we had to create a way for you to do that through Commander, and then it just pushes the money across to QuickBooks. And I am going to show the QuickBooks integration piece in just a second, because what we just did is we created a few tickets in the invoicing mode. You know, we sold this item 3 times. We're going to do a service ticket, and we're going to also create a purchase order, and then we'll push everything and we'll shoot across into QuickBooks and take a look at what that looks like.
Sounds good.
Okay, so on the servicing side, guys, we've got a repair order module, a work order module, if you
wish. I have a question too, Steve.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Are we limited to just these items, or can we add other items?
Okay. The question was, are we limited to just these items, or can we add other items? The inventory module in Commander, with this design of these different folders, think of them like Windows folders in a way, because you can add additional folders if you choose to. So, you know, people will say, well, I sell fuel, or I sell guns, or I sell fireworks, or whatever. And so you can create a folder. Here's one for fireworks, for example, or fuel, or other items that you sell, or maybe some suppliers that you buy product from that we don't necessarily carry a price book for. You can simply right-click, create a new folder, and then when you go into the system to add that item to the system for the first time, because there's no price book for it to draw from, you would go ahead and enter the item, the description, and the pricing. And that would be an item that you had manually input to sell. You could also set it up with its own UPC code. You could print a barcode label for it. You can do all those things that I showed you with a manually entered item also. The invoicing module also, by the way, doesn't necessarily limit you. I mean, if you decided you just want to sell a miscellaneous item, you've got a red T-shirt on and you feel like selling it, you know, and you type in red T-shirt. There's no such item in the system as a red T-shirt, and it happens to be extra large, and I'm going to sell it for $19.99. You know, you can go through the process very, very easily of just manually selling anything you want like this, and it'll track that too and allow you to sell it. So whether or not sorry, go ahead.
If it has a UPC code already, would it read any of that information?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. In fact, any product, you know, here's how you do this. If you have items that, let's say apparel, right, or other things that come from suppliers and you want to put them in Commander, tackle, or whatever you want to put in, you can put the item in, and you can actually, as an item number, you could use your scanner and just, instead of making up a random SKU for it, you could just scan the UPC code and put it into the system using that barcode. So for example, I could pick up a can of Coke, or, you know, bottled water, or whatever, you know, retail type items, candy bars, doesn't matter. and I could scan the barcode that's on those, and it would capture that data into the system, and then I save it, and I put in, 16-ounce can of Coke as my description, and my pricing, and my inventory levels, and so forth. Now I can, just like a grocery store, scan that item, pick up the can of Coke, don't have to print a label for it, but just scan the label that's already on it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's why when people say, well, what do I need? If you're on a limited budget and you're looking at possibly purchasing the scanner or the barcode printer, which one would I recommend purchasing? I would always recommend purchasing the scanner first. So, okay, so in the work order module, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's awesome. You go
Okay.
on. That's good.
All right, good. So in the service module, you're going to notice the navigation, the way Commander is doing things. When we clicked on the point of sale module, we got a list of everybody we sold parts to. When we click on the service module, we get a list similarly of all the folks that we have service jobs going for. And of course, in here, we can start a new service work order, or we can search for history on a previous job that we might have done. I work on all kinds of units in here with different people that I demo, but there are some folks that also are cross-industry. So if you are marine and power sports, or marine and outdoor power equipment, yesterday we had a guy that was marine. He was doing power sports and golf cart, so he was really cross-industries. But those are the industries that we're servicing too, so it really works out really nicely. But if I need to see the service history on this Grady White and I wanted to look it up, I can look it up by its serial number. So if I do type in the serial number for this particular unit, or just a portion of the serial number, actually, it'll come right up. And I get all the work orders that I ever did on that particular boat. And this is one of my demo units, of course, that you can see service history going back to 2012. That was the first time that I did a work order on this particular boat. So very, very easy to search up work orders. So if you don't have a system for, storing work orders or service history, this is where Commander is going to kick in very, very powerfully and give you service history. If you search by the serial number, of course, it doesn't matter if the customer sold the boat, or possibly it was one that you had sold to one customer, they traded in, and then you sold it to somebody else. The serial number remains consistent, and so even if a different customer owned it for a while, you would have the complete service history. If you wanted to search by the customer's name, then of course you would limit it to just the results for that customer. The other thing that we have that's a fairly powerful feature is we have the ability to search through closed work orders. And so if you did work on a boat or a motor, and let's say, for example, we did this trigger plate assembly here, and we don't remember what work order this was on, and Craig Wilson comes in and we're looking at all these work orders, we have no idea. Somewhere on one of these work orders is a trigger plate assembly. We can actually do a search here on the side. There's a little feature we have for searching through the content of the work order, or invoice, or purchase order. And in this particular case, there it is there, Craig Wilson trigger plate assembly. And I can click right into it. A few other customers also had one. And it takes me into the work order, and I can see that that work order was actually invoiced in August of 16. So given that it's November of 17, that would be out of warranty if it was a 12-month warranted item. So very, very quickly I can navigate. I mean, imagine how long it would take manually to search through work. First, to find the work orders, if you have them in your filing cabinet, and then to go through every single document to try and find an item on a work order. And look how quickly we can do that. All right, we're going to do a new service ticket. So what we're going to do here is very simply the navigation style is a right mouse click and then new. There's also a new button in the top left anytime you need to do something. And that puts us in our new service ticket. We can search again for our customer that we're looking for. And we can go ahead and let's use Craig Wilson again since we had him on the ticket. We go across to the right-hand side to see which boats this customer owns. Now, this is kind of what I call his toy box. And in this particular case, he's got a handful of items that we've been working on. He's obviously a valued customer because he has got a golf cart, he's got a mower and a Grady White. He's got some other stuff here that I've worked on for him. So I'm going to go ahead and select his boat here, put it on the work order. The boat goes here on the right-hand side. And so the customer's name's here on the left, the boat's here on the right. Now, all of that I can do within seconds. I mean, all this talking and explaining, of course, slows us down. When we're viewing the boat information here, we also have the ability to load picture data. So we'd see the engine numbers here, and then of course we can show pictures if we want to. So if you want to document something with images, Commander allows you to load one or multiple images. So you can put photographs in here if the guy don't want to get blamed for damage to something or whatever it is that you're doing. You can load pictures. This is also handy in the sales module to be able to load pictures with that boat record. So we've got our boat loaded here. Top left-hand corner, there's a green tab. We just click there, type in what this customer requested. So I usually just type in new impeller, oil change, and maybe boat will not start. That was the one I owned. So these are going to be notes that the technician sees. You can print the work order at this point if you like to collect the customer's signature. There's a customizable disclaimer for you that you can use, but you've logged the job into the shop, and there it is at the top. Now, when it's time to start putting the parts and labor onto this actual unit, this is where we pop the work order open. And of course, the tech is looking at the work that he has to do. There's a printed copy for him. And we can now begin using one of the EPCs. Now, the one that I'm going to demonstrate, keeping in mind that, if you have a Yamaha has their own EPC. A lot of folks use PartSmart for the Evinrude Johnson stuff. Volvo Penta has their own EPC. Honda has Honda IN. And Mercury, of course, has one called Easy Parts 5 running through MERCnet. Used to be Midas until they stopped updating that, I believe, in September of last year. So we'll show it with the Easy Parts 5 integration piece. Even though I have a Grady White with 2 Yamaha motors, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I'm just going to show the functionality. So when you're clicking into these EPCs and you're looking for product, and you navigate to the engine that you're looking for, we're going to get to the image data. Now, this EPC data, or what they call electronic parts catalog data, is some, the old microfiche, whatever. Let's say we go to the starter motor, since that was one of our issues. We're going to have our parts list here, and I can actually click on the item in Commander, or at least in the EPC, right-click and ask to view it. Now, what that does is it actually looks in Commander to see if I have the item. So it's going to pull back the fact that I don't have this in stock. If I were to order it, it would cost my customer $361. That's the sell price that we're selling it for. So it doesn't display Mercury's price necessarily or Yamaha's price. It's going to display our price that we're selling it for. I picked a newer motor, so there's no NLA stuff and there's no super sessions in here, which is actually kind of a nice feature. If I were to click on the item and it was a superseded item, it walks through the super session chain and shows you that you don't have that item under any of the numbers. And of course, if it's NLA, we show you that also. But the idea behind this integration is without ever leaving the EPC, while you're looking at it, you can see here's a gear kit, right click, view it, and I can immediately see that I don't have that in stock. Now, if that gear kit was something that I actually did stock, so if I shoot back into Commander, just as an example, into my inventory module, and I pop that gear kit into stock, and of course it's a Mercury item, so we'll go ahead and put it in the Mercury price book. That's where we'll find it. And let's say we had one in stock, and it was in bin location. We can see 43, but I'll add a 431 just to make it different. And actually, that 43 is the class code. So that's what we're so I'll leave that alone. But that's a great feature for Mercury. We can actually utilize the class code as the bin location, and that helps you organize your rows and shelves and so forth. But back into Easy Parts 5 here, I'll right-click, view that item again, and now you'll see it come up and it shows my stock. So there's my one, there's my bin location 43. So really handy to be able to see your stock inside the EPC, and then also to add the item to a pick list if I choose to. That's another option. So let's go ahead and put that on a pick list. And I've got a little pick list here of some items there it is there. There's the gear kit. So let's pretend that these are the items here that we need for this particular job. And we've created a mini shopping cart inside our EPC. So this could be in Yamaha's EPC. Like I mentioned, any of the EPCs, doesn't really matter which one you're using. We can perform this function in all of them. So instead of cutting and pasting the items or copying them over or scanning them even, we just simply export our complete pick list and we pop right back into our work order. We tap the import button and in they go. So those items just drop right into my work order there. So that's a great time saver. We don't have to have the technicians writing the items down on a piece of paper, bringing them to a service writer or whatever. We can just create pick lists and import them. And of course, it also looks to see if you stock the items. So this line in the middle of the screen here is one that I stock. So it shows me that I could fill that from stock because I actually have one in stock. But all the other items that show a zero fill are items, of course, that I don't have in inventory, with the exception, of course, of that one down at the bottom. There's a couple at the bottom, actually, the regulator and the gear kit. I also have those in stock. Now we're ready to put some labor on here. We're working up an estimate for the customer. You're going to notice that Commander starts in quote mode. And I neglected to tell you, but let me just mention it now. We have 3 statuses that we use. We start out in quote or estimate mode so we can add parts and labor to our work order without affecting our inventory levels. And of course, then we can email that quote or estimate to our customer right here from the work order screen. We don't have to go out to our email box and send it. It sends it right from here. Once the customer or the warranty company gives us their approval, it's no longer going to be in quote mode anymore. We post it. There's a post button up here on the top left. And once we post it, that's when those items are going to get sent to the ordering pad and so forth, so we know we have to order parts for the job. And then, of course, the final status is when we invoice it. But let's go ahead and put our labor on here. So a couple things to talk about with labor. One of them is that we have an internal labor menu in Commander that you can populate with your labor codes for winterization or haul out or whatever it is you do, sublet labor. Put in your standard labor rate here. Mine's $90 an hour, and I can add that to the work order very easily. I'm going to move the labor up. This is a great feature. I'm just holding my shift key down and I'm moving the labor line to the top so we can kind of view it here at the top. The labor lines will open up into big paragraphs of description. If you'd like to type in detailed descriptions for the work that you do, you can do that. And then, of course, you can adjust your labor hours. Let's say we were a 3-hour job. Now, doing it this way is not drawing data from any of the flat rate labor data that is out in the industry. We're one of the few companies, we might be the only company with the exception of a really old company that had labor data. Spader used to have labor data. There was a Spader labor guide. But we've actually taken the time to compile from the different manufacturers, so from Mercury and Evinrude and Yamaha, Suzuki, a whole bunch of them. We've put together flat rate labor guide data so that when you go looking in your labor codes here, instead of having just a labor menu like this, you could click in and you could navigate through, and it'll look a little different in the marine data set, but you'll have these different categories that you can navigate to. We organize the marine ones by the displacement of the engine first, and then you can see the section that you're looking for, if it's electrical or mechanical or whatever it is that you're looking for, impeller. And so in those particular data sets, if you guys want any of those, you have to just let me know. There's a nominal charge for them. But we can actually preload 40,000 labor codes into the system just like a price book. And then you can click on them and it'll apply the right time increment for that job. So just bookmark that because that's something we're kind of excited about, and most of our marine dealers are, giving those a decent look. I don't have them loaded into my system to show you. If you want a separate demo to see what they look like, I can set that up for you. So here we have our labor on the ticket. There's also a feature. Most jobs that come in the marine industry have, of course, more than one task, meaning that we're not going to just do one thing. So as you're adding your different labor here, let's say we replace the impeller, just so we can differentiate here. As we're adding these things to the system, we can see the labor lines going on, and we can actually group them together. So we have a tasking feature. So if you want to get separate totals by job, you just take the labor line and you highlight the items, you right mouse click, and then you ask it to give it a job code or a tasking code. And that, of course, is going to cause you to have one total. And this, of course, would cause a second total on the ticket. Right click, assign it a task. And I'll show you what that looks like when we print the ticket, and we will have separate totals. So we'll assume that we've got the green light for the job. We'll post it. And of course, that will also mark the parts that need to be special ordered. You'll see here on the right-hand side, all the parts we need to order have a little marking next to them, SO, SO, SO. And the ones that say P are the ones that we can pick from our inventory. So those are the ones we actually have. So that's kind of what we do there. We just post it, and all the parts that need to be special ordered are marked. And now we can go over to our PO pad and take a look. So over on the PO pad, let's close out of our EPC here. Our PO pad is going to populate with all the parts that need to be ordered, remember, for jobs, customers, and so forth. There was our special order part for Freddie Adams, and here's all the parts for Craig Wilson that we need to order. So these Mercury parts, if we want to put them on a purchase order, they could be Yamaha, they could be Land and Sea. We simply look at what's on the PO pad, highlight the Mercury parts, actually sort them first so they group together, and then add the Mercury parts to a purchase order. Again, there's no typing. You just highlight them, drop them onto the order, and then of course Mercury would be your vendor if you were a Mercury dealer. It's letting me know I qualify for free shipping. It actually counts down from the free ship to the free shipping mark. So if Mercury requires $200 as a purchase order minimum, it'll let you know if you're $8 short or whatever, so you can add another oil filter to the order. Once we create the purchase orders in the system, we have an outstanding order. To get this up into Mercury or Evinrude or Land and Sea or whatever, there's an export button at the top here. So these are special routines that we've written to save you time when you place your purchase orders. So instead of going into MERCnet and into the shopping cart and starting to type in all the items, we're simply going to go and say, okay, this is a MERCnet order, and this is Mercury, and we want to export it out. So that takes care of pushing the file out. It's just 2 clicks, and we have a file now that will upload into MERCnet's shopping cart. I do have a video posted on YouTube, guys. If you want to see it, just go into Mercury Marine Dealer Software. There's a video there, and it's about 3-4 minutes, and it shows how the purchase order uploads into the shopping cart. They have an upload button in their system, and it grabs our purchase order and uploads it into their shopping cart. The same applies for Yamaha if you were placing an order through YDS or Land and Sea. If you're a Land and Sea dealer, we have one for BRP or Evinrude. We have one for Suzuki now. We have one for Donovan. So, all of these different suppliers we're able to push purchase orders up for. And that way, when the purchase order arrives, we don't have to scan in the items. We've already got the purchase order here. We know we're expecting to receive it. We can print barcode labels if we want to for the items that are coming in, and that'll print the customer's name and the document number on it. That's why we would possibly print a label for special order parts coming in. But let's receive the purchase order. We have an option there to enter the bill, and I'll come back to that because I know we have Tammy with us. So I want to demonstrate this feature. In fact, I'll pause here just to do it. There's a feature there as you're receiving the purchase order to actually put in the bill. So for the folks that want their bills to push across from Commander into QuickBooks, what happens here is if you have an invoice from that vendor, and I'll just put in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you can choose the vendor invoice date and due date. And the parts folks can actually do this. This is actually something where you can hand off some of the responsibilities and say, okay, look, when you receive the purchase order, if there's an invoice with it, let's have the purchase order in your left hand, let's hold the bill in your right hand, and let's make sure that we've been properly billed so that if we received 3, we want to make sure we were billed for 3, so they didn't bill us incorrectly. Or if we didn't receive the item at all, let's make sure it was cross-shipped. Let's make sure it's not on the invoice, because this thing will handle cross-shipped and back-ordered items and so forth. So in this particular case, we're just verifying that we were billed the same amount as the quantity we received. And even though we didn't have a shipping amount, let's just put in $100 for shipping. In case, if there was a shipping amount that also needed to be paid, you can enter that. And of course, there's the bill that is now entered and attached to the Commander purchase order, and we can save that. So just bookmark that we took care of that. We entered the bill. Now the paperwork gets stapled together and goes to the accounting folk, and they'll have the parts manager's signature on the purchase order saying, okay, we received these items, so he initials it, signs off on it, and the bill that is attached to it is signed off on, so we know it's also been compared to the purchase order, because we don't want to pay purchase orders, we want to pay bills. It's very dangerous if you pay or remit payment on purchase orders. All right, so we've gone ahead and we've received our order. After the orders have been received, there's a little button at the top here that we made nice and accessible. It's right in the front screen. You used to have to run a report, but because it's one that's used all the time, we put a button up here at the top. So if you click on that button to see what parts have come in today, it shows you we have parts that have come in for repair order number 1211. So we can actually go get that job started. Now, you know, obviously if there's parts that are coming in for a lot of different jobs, you might have it looking more like this, where you have different jobs, different product, different, you know, different customers that parts have come in for. So it's going to give you the whole breakdown there. And that way, I call it a parts distribution list, so we can actually see where the parts have got to go. So now that we know the parts are here, we can go into the repair order, pop it open, and of course, give the parts to the tech. So that they can start the job. The labor lines can be assigned. So I have 2 labor lines on my ticket. Labor line is in position 1 and position 8. You'll notice they start with an L on the left-hand side for labor. Those can be assigned to technicians down here at the bottom. So if I want to assign a tech, I'm going to put Peter on this job, and I'm going to go ahead and put Dave on this job. So if I've got multiple techs, you can go ahead and assign the technicians to those work orders. So you can have more than one tech working on, you know, one boat if you want to. They'll each get credit for their labor hours. We also have a time clock and a scheduler. So the time clock down here at the bottom is if the tech wants to go ahead and clock into the job. That way he can start a clock running, and that's going to, of course, calculate his actual hours. How much time did he actually spend on the job before he clocked out? If he goes to lunch, he clocks out, clocks in again, clocks out, and so forth. That will accumulate a value down here at the bottom for actual hours, so that there's a relationship now that exists between the actual time and the billable time. So actual and billable are going to have some calculations done. So if we only billed 1 and he took 2 hours to do the job, we've got 1 over 2, which is 50% efficiency. That wouldn't be very good. If we were a $100 an hour shop, that drops our labor down to $50 an hour that we're technically making because he took too long to do the job. So efficiency ratings, utilization ratings are things we'll talk about. Here's our 3 hours assigned to Peter. The scheduler is if you want to put it on a calendar. Now, we don't use Outlook or Google or whatever. We have a calendar inside Commander that's shared between the workstations, so you schedule it. It'll take the time increment I need from 8 till 11. I'm going to go ahead and post it. This one down here, I just need 1 hour. Let's go ahead and schedule that from 8 to 9. And both of those jobs are sent to our technician calendar where you'll see them show up here. Each technician gets a different color. So as you're looking at the actual calendar itself here, you can see Dave for 1 hour. He's in green, and then Peter in yellow. So as it handles multiple technicians, there's different views. You can do a day view, a week view, depending on what you're looking for. The techs can actually view the calendar also. So if they come in and Dave says, what have you got me working on today? It's Tuesday morning, and he looks and he says, okay, I've got to do the impeller on that Grady White. He can see that. He can look for his name, and he can also, from the actual list view at the top, because there's a calendar view at the bottom and a list view at the top there where it's showing him what he has to do. They replace the impeller that's assigned to Dave. He can double click on that, and it takes him right into the work order. So that's one way of him seeing what's going on. If you don't like the text going into the work orders, he just wants to clock into that job. There's a time clock here outside of the work order where you can see he has to replace the impeller. And he can actually use the barcode. There's a barcode in the top right corner of the work order. And if he scanned it, it would just come up with work that was assigned to him, and he could go ahead, clock in, clock out. And that same function then is in play without him having to go into the work order. So for those of you that don't want to let your techs into the work order, they've got a spot outside of the work order where they can still clock in and clock out of the jobs. Of course, when the job's all said and done, we'll go to the checkout window and we'll collect our money here, $2,900. I'll just go ahead and take a check, pay it, and invoice it. We'll just make it simple. So the work order that's going to print for us is going to have all of our parts and labor on it, our logo at the top, And you're also going to see that it breaks the jobs down. So because I used that tasking feature, let me just go back to the top a little bit so you can get a better look at it. There's that barcode in the top right that I said they could use to scan to get to the content of the work order when they were clocking in and out. So that's another use for the scanner. And then here's the body of the ticket. Now, we use this tasking feature. So the tasking feature has a lot of great applications. I've seen people using it to divide work done on multiple engines, you know, port and starboard motors, so we can go ahead and break that down, a kicker motor. Some folks like to break it down just with labor and parts separated like this. So you have your, you know, your labor total and your materials or parts total for that job. So the customer, even though it's a $2,700 job, they might ask you, well, how much did you charge me to do the impeller or whatever the case might be, and you can give them totals for each job. A little easier than busting out the calculator and trying to do it. Also, a great way to give estimates if you find 6 things wrong with a customer's boat. Instead of just, you know, giving him a total, you could give him an estimate that broke it all down like this, so he could come in and say, well, okay, I'm going to do this and this, but I'll come back for the other 2 next month when I have a little more money. Down at the bottom, you'll notice that we have a few additional fees that can be added. You know, some folks are applying an inspection fee, some folks are charging shop fees. And so depending on what your additional charges are that you have that are on here, the work order can be set up to automatically collect those so that you don't forget to add those charges to your physical work orders. Now, we'll pause for just a second. Notice the repair order number is 1211 and the customer is Wilson's Paradise Marine. So if we did want to push this into QuickBooks at some point, we would simply open QuickBooks and we would open up our transport utility, or our interface as we call it, and we would ask it to transfer today's business. Now we can do, of course, a starting and ending date range, so it doesn't matter if you skip a day, you can come back and post for 2 days, and it also does not matter if you post more than once in a day. But this does not run automatically. That's the most common question about the interface. Can it be set up to just push it across automatically? And the answer is no. There are a lot of people that run more than one company file in QuickBooks. So if you're running multiple companies, we want to make sure that we're posting across into the correct company and that there's somebody behind the wheel of the car when this is actually pushing across to look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the transfer button. That's all it takes to get it over. And of course, it takes the invoices and the payments and the bills and everything else that we just did and moves it across into QuickBooks. So first thing we'll do, since we're on the main screen here, is go to see our pay bills here. And we will see that that bill that we entered now shows up for Mercury. There it is down at the bottom. We can go right to it, and we can see the $100 in freight charges and so forth. So that bill actually pushes across into the QuickBooks Bill Pay module. Of course, if they have a credit card of yours on file, it might already be paid, but you still have to clear the bill, go through and pay it, and clear it. The other thing that just happened is we could go to our customer center here, and we'll go into Craig Wilson. There he is there. And notice here that we have repair order number 1211, same document number that it has in Commander, just came across to QuickBooks. So we have RO in front of something that's a repair order, and we use a different designation. If it's a parts invoice or a boat sale, it would have an INV in front of it. That means it came from the invoicing module. So we put that prefix in front of the document. So if you have invoices in QuickBooks now, we're not going to clash with your numbering system, of course, because we have this numbering prefix. If I open up that invoice, this is Tammy's moment. Tammy, notice here that we have the part number and we have the description in front merged together, but they both go in the description field. So what we're doing essentially is we're not adding items to QuickBooks, because adding items to QuickBooks is very problematic. In fact, QuickBooks' items list is its nemesis. We want to avoid adding individual items to QuickBooks, so we use the description field. And the 2 reasons we don't want to add items to QuickBooks, actually there's multiple reasons, but a lot of folks are using QuickBooks Pro or Premier. And in both those cases, if you were to actually research those, you would find that they have an item limit. and it's 14,500 items. That's the max that you can put in. So if you hit 14,500, which they're calling the magic number, it's not so magical. It actually just shuts down. We don't want to have that issue. The other issue, of course, with adding items to QuickBooks individually is that they don't update when the prices change, and so they would create an incorrect inventory valuation if we were using the QuickBooks items list to calculate our inventory asset value. That would be very problematic. So we've got around it by simply merging the part number and the description together in the description field of the QuickBooks invoice anyway. On the Commander side, of course, it's individual items that are updating and the pricing is correct, but you get line item detail in the transfer. So for the accounting folks, this is great because instead of just pushing across a big total, we did $8,000 in part sales. Well, that's great until it's out of balance, and now you can't really find what you're looking for. If you need to make modifications to something or change things, QuickBooks is very, very forgiving, and that's another reason why only the accounting and management folk need to be in QuickBooks. So we have a very definite separation between the two, where the accounting module is just accessed by ownership and management and accounting people, and then parts and service people can do all the damage they want over on the Commander side. So that's the integration piece with QuickBooks. And let me just pop open my PowerPoint again because I have a few slides to show you here. And I got a little off script and then I closed it. So let me just relaunch it for you. So we looked at the cash drawer. We looked at the work order here broken down into tasks. And then here's the QuickBooks integration piece that works with QuickBooks Pro, Premier, and Enterprise. It does not work with QuickBooks Online. So where invoices and work orders are posted, payments come across so you can do your banking bills are posted in the QuickBooks version, and customer balances, if the customer owes you money, are reverse synced into Commander. That's the only thing that flows from from QuickBooks back into Commander is the customer balance. So everything else goes the other way. When we initially launch you, of course, we can run the interface in reverse, so it extracts your customer list or syncs your customer list and vendor list with Commander to save you time inputting those names and addresses. You don't have to manually input them into Commander. This is the merchant services slide, guys. If you guys have an interest in getting a rate quote, that's all I'm asked to do. I don't have rates for merchant processing. I just know that having integration is a really nice thing. Unfortunately, we can't integrate with everybody's merchant company. So those of you that are using a different merchant processor, which I'm sure is everybody, we invite you to get a rate quote. If you don't set up an account with XCharge, you can still close transactions out in Commander as credit card transactions. When you go to the checkout window, we give you these payment options for debit card and credit card. Those will simply prompt you for the card type, Visa, MasterCard, whatever, and you go ahead and invoice it. But that does not physically collect your money. You would have to run your merchant portal in a side terminal, type in the amount, and collect the money. So the integration is nice if you don't want to slow down to do that. The other thing that's nice about the merchant integration is they have a feature for storing the credit card on global servers. So if you check a box in Commander and say, I want to store my payment history, that customer's credit card is stored on their server. So it's not on your computer. You're PCI compliant. But anytime you need to apply their credit card to a Commander invoice, you can click in on their name and you can select the credit card that they paid with previously. It's encrypted, of course. It just displays the last 4 digits of the card, and you can apply it. And that's great for reoccurring billing, where you're billing, things like storage or rental or things like that, where you have to apply the credit card on a repetitive basis. So there's the phone number for that, or just let me know and I'll have them get your rate comparison, and we'll move on from merchant processing, not my favorite subject. Data or data conversion, this is if you're switching from another dealer management system. Of course, we can convert your customer list and inventory and so forth and pull it over into Commander. Depending on how difficult it is, there's typically a nominal upcharge, $250, and we'll get that for you. The only point to mention here is that we can't do transactions. So if you come to me and say, Steve, I've got 10 years worth of invoices and work orders in my old DOS system, can you get those for me? The answer will be no. You typically want to have keep your old system running on at least one workstation and look up your work orders there if it's on InvenTrack or whatever it's on. You know, QuickBooks, of course, already has it if you're using QuickBooks. So that's the only way to keep the transactional data accessible. Pricing will come back to you guys, but I'll touch on it briefly because we do have set pricing for the product. Very, very competitive for a marine-based system. We're very similarly priced. Actually, we're a little cheaper than QuickBooks Enterprise for one user, and then become very comparable, if not slightly less. But that's our price range. We're not a $20,000 system. We start at $2,400 for a single computer. It goes to $2,900. That's a $500 increase for 2 workstations. And then it drops again in half to $250 per station after 2. So if you go to 3, that would be $3,150. If you go to 4, it would be $3,400. The maintenance starts at $100 per month for 1 computer. It goes to $120 for 2, and then after that, it's just $10 a month. So if you have 3 computers, you'd be $130. If you're 4, you'd be $140, and so forth. And it's pretty good value because we provide 3 different services for the maintenance fee. So the software license, support fee, you know, unfortunately, nobody likes paying monthly fees, but this is a fully supported product from 3 standpoints. One, we're going to provide price file updates. We have to employ people to compile the price file data for you, have it on our server, and have it ready for you when those prices become effective. So your Mercury, your Evinrude, your Land & Sea, whatever, all the files will be available. And we don't pay. You will not be paying for each file that you download. You can download, like I said, every single file, every update, so that you don't lose money skipping price updates. The second component of the support is technical support and training. When we first install you or first sign you up, it'll include the installation, so there's no additional cost to get you installed. We connect in and we set it up on your network, make it work on all your workstations, load the integration pieces between EasyParts 5 or QuickBooks or whatever we have to do to get it all working. So you'll be spending a significant amount of time with an installer, typically just connecting them to your computers initially for the installation. And then the training we'll talk about in a minute. But the tech support also is important. So you have a place to call 6 days a week to get questions answered. If you have a problem or whatever, we employ tech support people here in California to take care of your questions. And then the software updates, those of you that have been with any DMS or even with QuickBooks for any length of time, you know that things are always changing. We're developing our product as we go. We're always adding new features to it. Dealers request, little changes here and there. And we have 3 updates per year where we release new features. QuickBooks, of course, does 1 update a year, but you have to come back and buy it. So if you were a Premier dealer, you'd spend $800, or if you were Enterprise, you'd be spending a few $1,000s every year just for the new version of QuickBooks. But with Commander, you get those updates as part of your renewal. So price updates, tech support and training. You hire a new parts person. You've been with us 5 years. All of a sudden, you've got a new service guy or a new parts guy. He doesn't know how to use Commander. How do we get him trained? We're not going to charge you to train him. Minimum contract, there isn't one. So when you sign up, we're not going to lock you in. We're not going to handcuff you to our system for 5 years. There are companies that do that. That's why we mention these things as we go through the demo. In the price point, system options are typically not included. So if you have things like barcode printers or scanners or cash drawers or anything that you want as far as the hardware goes and you choose to get those from us, you're welcome to buy those from us. We have them in stock. You're welcome to go buy them directly yourself. If you can find somewhere that sells them for less money, that's fine too. So I'm going to come back into a live view of the software now and just go over to the boat module, but I want to pause and make sure everybody's clear on what we did in service. Was everybody okay with that portion? EPC integration, labor guide integration if you want it, service history. Any questions on any of that?
Nope.
Okay.
Very nice system.
Thank you. Yeah, we've worked hard to develop it. I think we're a family-owned business, 38 years in business, and we've got about $6 million invested in this product. We didn't have $6 million to invest, but we did have a lot of dealers using a DOS product that we had on a Unix product before that. And this one was written out of necessity because we knew somebody, and if it wasn't going to be us, it would be somebody else, but somebody was going to develop and design a nice Windows-based system. And, you know, as it turned out, it was us. That it's just kind of how it turned out. Everybody else ran to jump on the cloud, and there's a whole bunch of them that are looking to get off the cloud just as fast as they got on it, because it didn't turn out to be what everybody thought it would be. We can give you remote access to Commander, of course. That's important. If you want to log in from home, your accountant wants to log in to do the books remotely, you don't have to be on a cloud-based system to do that. So we'll just bookmark that thought. Here we are on the left-hand side. There's a red and blue key. This is where our boat module resides. And in here you see these yellow folders again. Now, these yellow folders were used, remember, on the items section or the inventory for the parts. It was used to separate our suppliers and our parts and our fees and all those kinds of things. We loaded our price books. But when you go to the boat module, you can use these yellow folders for whatever you choose to use them for. So if you have rental units, you put them in there, consignment units. You want to create a map of your storage. Now, when I say map, let me be very specific. We don't provide a digital map of your marina or whatever, but we can mirror it through folders. So we can say, well, here's my storage. There's Marina 1, 2, and 3, and let's take a look at what I have in, you know, dock, how many docks, or lot A or lot B if they're dry racks or whatever. So we can, through a folder map like this, we can mirror, you know, the layout of your particular marina. And inside of that configuration, you can certainly put the boat that's in that particular space. There's a location spot down here at the bottom. And if you want to have that location, some people choose to also put that up here where they have the stock number. So you could choose to do that if you wanted to. But you would then easily be able to keep track of the customer and their boat that resided in that particular slip. And there's also custom fields that you can add if you want to keep track of whether or not that slip has power or water or whatever. Having said that, it's not a slip reservation system. It doesn't do what I've seen some of the actual slip rental systems do, where they have a meter and they're tracking how much electricity the guy used and, you know, whatever. It's not designed to do that, but it can certainly keep track of who's in what slip's available, and keep track of what needs to be billed, you know, the length of the slip and so forth. As far as the boats go themselves, I've got a marine section set up here where you can separate, you know, boat, motor, trailer, inventory, boats available. Anything that you put into the system for the first time that you own will typically go in with a stock status, meaning I own it. I don't put myself in as the customer. It has a stock status. And then when we use our invoicing module, which we'll do in a second, to sell it, it's going to change from stock to sold. It's going to collect the customer's name. And on the detail tab, it's going to record all the financial happenings with that sale, so the date of the sale and what the cost was of that particular unit. Now, with the actual costing of the boats themselves, let's go back to that. Maybe that one of these boats is already in here. Yeah. Let's see. All right, here's one here that we paid, or at least had a sale price of $59,000. On the back screen, you're going to see a cost there of $45,000. This is a fantastic feature in the system. We keep track of internal repair orders. So this is great for rigging or for repairs that you have to do on a trade-in unit. You want to keep track of how much money you put into it on the back end. So here's a $560 amount that caused the cost to go from $45,000 to $45,560. And in order for that to happen, we have to use the work order module, and we create an internal work order. And I'll show you just real quickly. There's a tab down here at the bottom where it's internal RO, and this is where the internal work orders reside, behind the boat record. So later, if I'm looking at that 560 and I go, wow, what did we do to that boat that caused that additional cost increment? We click on that internal RO tab, and I can see there's 2 work orders. So I'll go ahead and look at one of them, and I can see there was a winterization job that was done. And on the other one, I can see some parts and labor that went into that particular one of the motors, perhaps, on the boat. So we're keeping track. Now, the only thing that causes that to happen is the fact that we designate that work order as internal while we're creating the work order. We have a choice then to do it at our cost price. Now, I know some people that sell the parts to the work order, to the back end of the boat at retail. I mean, you can do that if you choose to. most folks use cost. When you go to the checkout window of the work order itself, that's going to only allow you internal as a payment method. Remember, we had all those other payment methods here, cash, check, credit card, whatever. Well, when you're doing an internal, I'm not taking money out of my pocket to pay the work order. I'm taking parts and labor out of my pocket, if you wish, and paying the work order. So we call it an internal, and as soon as we cashed that thing out, not really cashing it, but closed it, it sent that dollar amount to the back end of the actual boat record. So it's a great way not to lose track of parts and labor that go into boats that you work on, that you have put additional value or dollar value into. Now, the sales invoice that we have is also used to sell boat motor trailer inventory. So even though it's used to sell parts, we can go to invoicing, we can right-click and start a new invoice, and we can start selling pretty much anything here. If we're going to sell a unit or a stocked unit, we could look it up by its stock number or by its serial number. It doesn't really matter. In this particular case, I've got a bundle here of a boat, 2 motors and a trailer, and I've got something going on here where I could actually just pull all of those units, if I choose to, onto the invoice, because that's a bundle. So then I'd have the motors, the trailer, and the boat itself populating. Apparently the trailer is built into the cost of the boat. There was no price, or if there was a cost for the trailer, I'd have a cost, or at least a price amount here. So that's a way of putting those onto the ticket. Of course, we can put a customer's name on here, depending on who we were selling it to. Let's say we're selling it to Shane Williams here. And that can also be an estimate. So we could save that in quote mode. We don't have to invoice it. There's a sales calculator that is also in play up here at the top. There's a sales calculation piece. This is fairly new for us. I mean, we just released this about 6 months ago. But this is the beginning of what we would call an F&I piece. And it's porting out the numbers. If you can see here, all the combined total for the units, boat, motor trailer, is $55,000. We can see the sales tax. We can see the total. And we can see the customer's payment calculating over here on the right, $1,700, but that's based on 5.9% over 36 months. So that's not realistic. So let's say this was going to be done over a much longer time period. Let's say we were looking at, 72, or possibly a lot longer. Let's go 84, whatever the time increment would be. And you can see how it recomputes the payment. Now, if he said to me, Steve, I'm really looking for an $800, 800 is as much as I want to spend, I can put in $800 down here and do a rollback, and he would have to give me $3,400 as a down payment in order for him to get that payment at that particular loan term and that particular interest rate. There's also a way that you can work up deal scenarios using a roll and compare feature. And this is going to open 2 side-by-side scenarios. So you could say, well, over 84, it would be that. But if we went, a year longer, it's going to drop that down to 765. So you can play with the numbers on the right-hand side, without impacting the deal that you have in place. In Commander, without actually doing anything additional, we can actually save these numbers, of course, as part of the calculation piece. The calculator is also available on the sidebar here, on the toolbar. So a guy walks into your shop and you just want to pop the sales calculator open. You don't have a deal in process, but he says, how much is that boat? You say, well, it's $35,000. How's your credit? No, my credit's great. Okay, well, I could probably get you, for 60 months, 678 or whatever. So you can start punching numbers into the calculator without actually having a deal in place, and then that's going to, so you can almost use it as a sales widget if you wish. So back on our deal here, for Shane Williams, we can also add fees. So fees would be all your documentation fees and your, other things that you want to add to the deal. So there's a fees section in Commander. And of course, your fees for doc fee, title, registration, whatever, can all be set up actually, so you just pop them all on in one shot like that. If that's something that you charge, documentation fees or whatever. There's an item for payoff. This invoice also allows you to put in a trade-in unit if you want to add a trade-in. and it puts that trade-in right into stock, right from the invoicing module. It'll pop open a box where you say, well, okay, we're going to add the trade-in. So those are features of the ticket itself. We can actually close out the invoice in Commander and go to the checkout window. In the checkout window, this is where we can receive our payment, or we can put it on open account, push it across to our QuickBooks if we want to. Or we could hold the ticket, or maybe the customer gave you a deposit. You say, well, look, I'll hold that for you, but I'm going to need $1,000. And he wants to go ahead and give you a cash deposit to hold it. So that, of course, would reflect in the total, so you can see that he's given you some money down, and you could post that, and that would hold that deal for him. It will also send, of course, the payment across to QuickBooks, so Shane Williams would have $1,000 amount sitting in his account. I could bank that money, and then, of course, when the deal concluded, his balance would close out. I could do $1,000 cash that he gave me, the balance on open account, and then, of course, I'd be looking for the finance company to send me the check for the 57, and maybe he paid me the 1,000, depending on how the deal was being written. So that's kind of how we set up the boat transaction. We can invoice it out in Commander, but the invoice that we print is not your typical buyer's order or marine sales agreement or whatever. For those of you that want to go further and want to print DMV forms, or want to print boat registrations or bill of sales, or we have a couple things in the works with Commander. One of them is that we have in programming right now the intent. We don't want to do a slip receipt. Hold on a second here. Let's change our forms printer. So in different styles, depending on the ticket, the regular receipt that we print, of course, just has all the detail, not just the line item, the serial number. It'll have the serial number. It'll have the year, make, model, hours, and so forth, and it'll print a detailed ticket, and then it'll designate that unit has been sold. If you want to send it out to a forms module that's going to print your traditional purchase agreements, we've got two things in the works. One of them is within the sales calculator itself. We're going to add an import feature, which we have not done yet, but the import feature is to incorporate some of the new forms that we've designed, and those are your more traditional kind of marine purchase orders, which we've created already for our customers, and I'll show you what those look like. So the purchase agreement, these are some of the companies that we've been working with just to get their purchase order formats down. This is your more traditional marine purchase order format. So these are more traditional type purchase agreements. Now, our goal is to actually populate these forms. We've made them fillable PDFs that have calculations all working within the forms. And we want to give you the ability to drop this type of form right into the sales calculator and populate the form. Until that's completed, because it's not yet ready to go, that particular piece, we've integrated Commander with the sales calculator. You can export the deal out. There's an export button here, and it takes the numbers on this deal and it ports it out. And you can pick up an F&I piece from Dealership Tracker, which is right here. Now, Dealership Tracker has a forms library of an extensive number of forms depending on the state that you're in, all the bank contracts, all the application for title and registration, and all the different forms are here. If you don't see your forms listed, they can code these forms for you. And essentially what happens here is, without you doing any work at all, let's just close out of this deal here. You would open it up, and let's go back to the main menu. You would open up the system like this, and you'd say, well, okay, let's go ahead and get our deal information and search for the deal. It would let you know there was a deal here from Commander, and you would click into it. So there's Shane Williams. And of course, when we open it up, all the numbers, there's the 55,000. All the numbers are already here. The loan term, the interest rate, everything that we set up is already populated within the F&I module. So there's no re-inputting or additional data entry. That the two programs are completely mapped together in terms of what this deal looks like. And now you can simply use this to print your dealer-specific forms. If you want to go in and go to the forms printer, and you could print your, whatever the form was that you were looking to print. So in this particular case, if we wanted a buyer's order, we could go ahead and complete the deal.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
Do you have a time frame of what and when that might be finished, of what's being worked on for that?
Well, our piece as far as dropping the PDFs in is a little hard to project because the purchase agreement's already done, the sales calculator's already done. This piece I'm showing you now right here is available immediately. I mean, we have this integration piece already done, and this is what some dealers are doing that want to print, you know, their bank-specific contracts. The F&I world is in a little bit of flux at the moment because some banks and credit unions are doing e-contract where they'll send you a PDF and they set the deal up for you. So if you're using an F&I or outside bank, you know, they set the deal up, they send you the contract, and they send it to you in a PDF form. You print it and sign it with your customer. There are still a number of banks and credit unions that haven't got there yet, that are lagging, and might require the old school, you know, 3-part dot matrix carbonized impact form printing on bankers' contracts. And so in those particular scenarios, this is where this F&I piece kicks into play because they can print on a dot matrix printer. So we have to go backwards in order to go forwards, if that makes any sense.
Right.
We're doing business in so many different states now. For us to stop and try and code all the bankers' contracts on an old dot matrix printer doesn't seem like the direction that the industry is going. So we're going to do the PDF stuff. We're going to do the fillable PDFs. But this is a nice piece. I mean, and it's not overly expensive. You can pick up this F&I piece for $300, and then they have a monthly subscription with it. But they'll code all your forms for you. It has App One integration, so they do sourcing of banks. If you're wanting to have them run it through, it has free integration with App One, and it also has some links in with the credit unions for pulling credit bureaus and so forth. But if you want a separate F&I demo on this piece, I'll set it up. Just email me after the demo and say, yeah, we'd like to get a little bit more look at the F&I piece. But this is, the biggest drawback to most of this F&I stuff was I don't want to use a standalone F&I because I don't want to have to manually input the units and the dollar amounts and everything. And so we've eliminated all of the data and input by integrating the two pieces and transferring the data right over.
Okay.
And that's the huge plus to it.
Okay.
If you want to invoice out, a lot of folks just invoice out the deal in Commander, and when they close the deal out in Commander, of course, if I was to go ahead and close this deal and actually invoice it, we said this was a financed deal. That's interesting, so it adds that to it. Interesting. There's a few things about that I still need to learn, but it's letting you know there's a financed amount here, so it must have written this payment into the window because of the way we did it. Yeah, when we pushed it over. Interesting. All right, so here we are in our system options. The delivery of Commander, just so you know, folks, is all done electronically. When you sign up, we can get you installed fairly quickly. Usually the same day you place your order, you'll receive an email from us that has download functionality so that you can click in, download the program, and then we connect in and we start installing it for you. So that's the electronic delivery method. We can do that typically the same day. Software training, we host a webinar every Wednesday. So on a Wednesday, you can log in. We do this at the same time, 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time every week. So as I mentioned, we'll have dealers that have been with us for 20 years, but they need a parts manager. They get a new parts manager. He needs to be trained. Well, you just take the webinar, and you can log in at no additional cost anytime you want. And it's hosted every single week at, like I said, 9 o'clock Pacific on a Wednesday. One-on-one training, of course, after that. We'll do individual training with folks that need it. And there's training videos we have posted on our website, and the software comes with an online help menu. There's a manual, a PDF manual that you can either download or a search help menu on the desktop. And that's pretty much, I think, brings us to the end. The only thing that I haven't really touched on in this demo extensively is the reports that are available in Commander. And even though we're using QuickBooks, it's important to note that we go through General Ledger. So if you do decide that you want to run a report and see how much money you've made so far this year, I mean, literally within a couple seconds, you've got all your numbers on your screen broken down by GL account, giving you your cost of goods sold, your profit dollars, and you can see exactly how much money you're making. At the end of the day, you can run a report, of course, to see what should be in the cash drawer to close out the day. And I'll just do it for quarter to date just to get some numbers on here. The cash count page, and then a payment reconciliation page that shows you what you should have in cash and check and so forth. We can handle multiple cash drawers, so if you have more than one collection point collecting money, the report will look a little different. It'll have more than one drawer, so you can reconcile cash drawer 1 or cash drawer 2 depending on how you're collecting money. So we can handle up to 10 cash drawers, which is nice. The technician recap report, this would be the one for taking a look at your techs, how many billable and how many actual hours have they given you. And if you look at that, you can do it for the whole shop where you can actually see how many hours the techs have given you and what your efficiency rating for the shop is for all the techs combined. Now, if you want to drill down on an individual technician, you could run the report. Let's just say that Dave was the guy we were trying to zero in on, or Peter. We just run it for his tech number. So we just say, okay, we're looking at Peter only, and we want to see his profitability, and so we just run it for him. Now it eliminates the other techs, and the numbers down at the bottom are just for him, so we can see his costs and his profit dollars that he's generating for us. Possibly if we're paying commissions, his efficiency rating, which these ratings are all, of course, very high. Typically, you're lucky if you can get an 80% efficiency rating.
Okay, excuse me, one quick question on that.
Yes.
Right now we enter our mechanics time separately on the work orders in QuickBooks, and I have to manually go in and change, for it to show accurately to get any kind of report or efficiency totals. Will that automatically do what they put in and what we build out, and it not show as like it's an unbilled item still sitting there?
Well, the items in the repair order, they have two ways. The billable hours, of course, are going to be automatic, because when you close the work order, whatever you billed the customer for, that's a fixed number. Mm-hmm. And when you collect your payments, that work order closes out with billable hours, the 3 hours billable. The value of actual time that is computed down at the bottom is either going to be calculated based on the time clock, or it's going to be a manual entry into the actual hours box. If some folks if they're just choosing to make an entry of actual time. But the billable hours you won't have to worry about. Those are going to be added up for you. And if that's really all you care about is how many hours tech is billed, you won't worry about it. You'll run the tech recap report. We're not worrying about actual. We just want to see billable hours for technician number 400 for that time period, in which case we're only going to see his billable hours. They just come up like that. Okay, you billed out 136 hours within this time period.
Ah, okay.
So that eliminates all that manual adding it up, right?
Oh my goodness, yeah, a lot.
Well, good. Yeah, these are good moments when you kind of have that moment where you go, oh, wow, I'm doing all that manually. There's folks that take their numbers, their invoices, people that are handwriting or using other systems, and then they manually input all the transactions into QuickBooks. I mean, there's people doing some really labor-intensive things.
All right. Wow.
We have a sales tax report, of course, in Commander, but you'll also be able to get your sales tax report in QuickBooks. So if you need to run a sales tax report, you can see your sales tax liability on the Commander side. And, of course, we also have some really interesting reports as far as the inventory goes, things like best-selling items. You want to know what your top Mercury items or Land and Sea items are, you choose that OEM, give me my top 50 and within whatever time period. When the rep comes and you want to have a conversation with him about what's selling and what's not selling, very, very easy to zero in on your top sellers. If I wanted to go to, just land and see or whatever it is that I was looking to do this for, I can just choose that one supplier. And then let's say my top 50 for land and sea this year, and I view the reports, and there they are. You know, it gives me my list. So you'll quite often see our dealers walking around at the dealer shows. They know what they've sold. They know what they should be ordering. Obsolescence is an interesting concept too, because if you're using something like QuickBooks, and a dealer actually told me this once, he said, I called QuickBooks trying to get an obsolescence report, and they said, a what? And they said, why would you want to run a report on something you hadn't sold? They said, we're an accounting system. We give you all the numbers possible on everything, on anything that you've sold, but we don't do reports on things that haven't sold. So in Commander, of course, you can say, well, okay, I want to report on things that I've got on my shelf that I'm not selling. So something that hasn't had any sales this year from whatever supplier, and maybe I'm overstocked. I want to see I have a stock greater than 2. If I've got more than 2 on the shelf, and they haven't sold all year, show those to me. And I'll be able to see all the items that haven't sold for an entire year, and I've got more than 2 on the shelf. And I'll be able to see the date that I last sold them, the date I received them, you know, the date they were first taken into stock, and so forth.
Wow.
So we do some really interesting things. Those are great reports just for inventory management. Of course, we do reports on the units of the boats that you've sold. And those are kind of the highlights of the system, guys. Those are kind of where we're at as far as the program, the way it exists today. It's evolving. You know, we are just now releasing an e-commerce import. Really excited about this. If you have a website and you're doing business through your website, this little feature right here, which we just released about a week ago, is now going to capture the e-commerce data. So, for example, if you had 20 or 30 or 100 transactions you did over the weekend in your e-commerce portal, this will be able to import those transactions. We mapped them to your shopping carts of your e-commerce site, and we'll be able to create invoices. So it'll essentially, when you import the file, you'll just watch it, and right on the screen it'll go blip, 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 and create 100 invoices for you in the point of sale system with the parts on them. And anything you don't have in stock will get sent to the PO pad so you can manage your orders for fulfillment. So, you know, we keep developing, and that's why I said to you, when you're paying your monthly renewal, you know, a guy said to me, well, why would I need any updates if the software does everything I need it to do? And I said, well, you know, things are always changing. Software is never, ever, ever done. Our programmers have probably the most secure jobs on the planet because we're always going to have something new or something different that we can develop. Excuse me. One of the things we're looking at right now is, ShipRush integration. There's some really interesting portals in the e-commerce world, ShipRush, ShipStation, and there's one other one. They all start with Ship, ironically. But the idea behind those portals is that if you sell on multiple platforms, you're selling on Amazon and eBay, and you're selling on Sears. I mean, you can sell so many places now. You can sell online on Sears's website and different places where you can put product people don't even know. But those those platforms capture all that data into one kind of dashboard so that you can tell, you know, what's selling through which portals. And so for shipping management and product fulfillment, we're going to tie in. We're developing an integration piece now with some of those heavy hitter ShipStation type products for folks that do a lot of online business.
Okay. Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
We're starting to put new and used parts, whatnot, that we're collecting to, you know, consolidate on eBay. Would this, what you were just speaking about, help me with that?
Are you a Mercury? Who are you a dealer for, Teresa?
We're a Merc Cruiser, Volvo, Suzuki, Yamaha, quite a few, but not a Mercury, and that was one of my biggest questions.
Okay. Well, one of the things that's interesting for you folks that are Mercury dealers, because there's multiple answers to that question, so there's different facets that people sometimes miss. But in the Mercury file itself, we've done something where we put, we're probably not going to see it here, but we put NLA in front of the part number. So if this was an if this was no longer available, this gear kit, let me just not lose the number. Let me put it up here at the top. The description would have NLA and a slash like this in front of the part number. So it would look like that, okay?
Mm.
So that would let me know that's no longer available from Mercury. Now, if I had one in stock and I want to get rid of it, I want to let every Mercury dealer in the country know that I have it. Now, Mercury in MERCnet has a little portal where you can enter parts that you have, and other dealers can see them. But there's another way of doing it. There's a way that we have there's all kinds of apps that you get that I don't really talk about in this demo. But one of the apps that you get is a custom report generator, and this is for people that like designing their own specific reports. Now, we use this report generator to search through your inventory, let's say for Mercury, find everything that has an on-hand quantity greater than 0 that also has NLA in the description field, for example. And that would allow you to create a list of items that electronically would upload the entire list. Or if you don't just want to do your NLA stuff, but you just want to push all your inventory up there, you could just find Mercury inventory that has an on-hand quantity greater than 0 and create a file, and then that file uploads. We export it right here out into Excel, and then we do it in a format that when you log into Mercury's system, you can upload your entire inventory list in a single push, and in a couple seconds it uploads a couple thousand items, let's say, into their system, and now every dealer looking for that item can see that you have it.
Oh, wow.
And let me tell you something, that gets you some sales.
Yeah.
There's just not enough dealers doing it because it's labor intensive if you don't have an electronic way to do it.
Okay, what about Volvo? We are a Volvo dealer and have a large inventory of obsolete parts.
So if Volvo has a portal, I don't know what Volvo has. I know that Mercury has one. I haven't looked extensively in the Volvo system to see what option they have for dealers seeing, other dealers seeing what you have.
Right.
Can you see inventory from other Volvo dealers in their system or not?
I haven't really looked for it, but
we can explore.
If it was available through, and what was, because that would be so awesome.
Yeah, we can explore. Now, that inventory custom report generator that I showed you can export inventory into a file, and that can also be uploaded into other e-commerce sites. It's not just for the MERCnet thing. So if you want to export your Yamaha inventory or you want to export other inventory and push it up into your website or whatever, there's a little bit of work involved on the IT side
right.
with your web developer, but there's ways to upload lists of parts into your e-commerce site rather than do them one item at a time.
Okay.
So those are some of the directions that we're headed development-wise. So you know that you're doing business with a company that has decided to stay in business rather than allow our product to become obsolete. I'm going to close the demo, guys, just with showing you ease of navigation. Take a look along the top here. You're going to see we open tabs. And this happens as we use the program. So as we use Commander, purchase orders, PO pad, let's go back to see how the PO pad purged those items automatically. I didn't have to do that. That's just because they went on a Mercury order. Physical inventory, repair order, wherever we went in the program, we can tab back to. And the reason we do that is everybody's familiar with internet navigation where it opens up tabs. So we do the same thing, except we're doing it on a local machine. But everybody works in the same segments of the program every day when they work. So they have a favorites bar on the left here that they can customize, and they can put their own icons in there. If you like kits, that's a nice feature for jobs that you do reoccurringly, like winterization jobs or bottom paint jobs or whatever. I don't want to have to build that work order every single time, so I create a kit. When I go to the work order and I put my customer on the work order and I'm ready to go ahead and do a winterization job on their boat, instead of adding the parts and labor individually, let me add my winterization job as a kit. So just like that, you've got a work order that populates with a winterization job without having to do all that work manually. Similarly, it could be a bottom paint job or something else. So we call those kits, every work order that we create is basically a template for another one. So if I have another boat that comes in and I did this work order on it, we even put a duplicate button up at the top here, which means if I duplicate this work order, it creates a whole new copy of this work order. I can pick a completely different customer, a completely different boat, and continue. So if it was an engine rebuild that had a whole bunch of parts and labor on it, and I remember I worked on one of those just a year ago or 6 months ago, I can just duplicate that new that old ticket, and it'll use new, updated pricing on it, but it'll save me the work of having to recreate that entire work order from scratch. So very customizable on the sides. Every grid that you see on the screen, you can right-click and customize your view. So that you can add or remove fields. Let's say we don't want to see the service writer, we remove that, and of course that removes it from your grid. And so you can have your grids display from left to right any way you want in every screen that you go into. It's really, really great because you essentially can be the designer of your own screens and what you want them to look like, and shuffle data around. And every user, as I mentioned before, gets a username and password in the security section of the program. So you can control what sections they can go in and out of. You can drill down on almost any section of the program. For example, if I go into the inventory items and I don't want, my administrators can do everything, but my users, I don't want them to be able to edit the cost or change the on-hand quantities unless they sell something. I can limit, whether or not they can give discounts or other things. I've got all kinds of controls as far as security goes. And then the last thing we'll just touch on is just backing up your data. We've got two icons here for backup. One of them is going to be if you want to make a manual backup, you can just execute that. The other one is an automated backup that we actually run on a timer. And this is to keep your data secure. So that automated backup gets set up like this on a timer. You can check the boxes for the days of week that you're open for business. You can set the time that you want it to back up, what time of day, and then you can also sync it to a Dropbox. That means effectively that I'm getting a cloud backup without me remembering to do anything. It's going to back it up. All my data in Commander gets backed up at a certain time of day, and it drops it right into my my Dropbox, and it's so I can always recover very, very quickly if I have something happen to a local machine.
Is this something that's just automatically included? Because we currently have off-site backup every day.
So good question. Is it automatically included? Our automated backup is included with Commander, but specifically only backs up Commander data.
Gotcha.
So if you have a backup service that you're using that backs up the whole machine, you'll be doubly protected in effect because the Commander backup will be running, and then your backup service that you're using will also catch the Commander data. But I wouldn't use the Commander backup utility to try and back up your whole machine. It's not designed to do that.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Good
and
deal.
that kind of brings us to the end, guys. Let's pause for final questions, and then we'll get you out of here. Now, as far as getting started, guys, was there a question?
Yeah, Steve, I was just wondering if Commander offers a smaller program for businesses that aren't in the boat sales business, and there's a lot of things that are included in your system that I wouldn't really probably ever be using.
Well, so the portion that you would be using is mostly the parts module, or the boats, which side?
Yeah, I'm more of a repair-based business. Really don't sell any new boats or anything like that.
So we're not really modularized because of our price point. The only thing we do for you there is we have the ability to take out the pieces that you don't want. So if you say to me, well, I don't really sell parts so much, I don't need this invoicing module here, go to favorites, remove it. Now that icon's gone, I would do repair orders, labor, and kits, parts, and I need the boats module. But you can customize it so you only see in your navigation panels the portions of the program that you actually use. And when we go through these demos, they're sometimes intimidating because you see so many features. But our take is this: if I give you dealers to call, and we can give you references and whatever, but if you call dealers of mine, most of them would say, you know, I probably only use about 30% of the system, and that might be true. But the fact that those other features are there allows you to grow. And if you needed a calendar for scheduling, or you needed one of these other features and it wasn't there, that's a whole lot of a different problem to somebody who, you know, doesn't, you need the feature, it's not there, versus the guy that doesn't use the feature. So the system will work for you at whatever level you need it to. We're already so inexpensive. I mean, we're literally, you know, a system like this from Lightspeed is going to cost you, you know, $30,000. From us, you're going to end up spending a tad over $3,000. So because of our price point, we don't really scale it down beyond what we already offer, and it's not sold in individual modules. It's one product because of the way it's integrated internally. So we can just hide sections. Yeah, we can hide sections of it. But if you don't use the boat sales side of stuff, not a big deal. You know, you're not going to pay for Dealership Tracker. You're not going to have to spend. They have a $99 a month renewal with their program, and they have a you know, a startup cost associated with it. You just won't pay for that, so you won't get that piece at all. And that'll save you some money. That'll save you some money for sure. But as far as the price updates, I mean, as a repair shop, why wouldn't you want all the price books in there and have the parts and prices in there and updating? And, you know, that's going to be a huge feature for even a repair shop, right?
You're absolutely right. And, you know, those are aspects that I really like about your system. The system I'm using right now updates yearly. And it's really kind of a sad situation because I got to keep backing up and tracking down the new prices. And putting them manually into my inventory pricing. So your system definitely is super comprehensive, and you're right. The price point is there. It's a good deal, and it allows for you know, infinite expansion.
Yeah, I haven't seen another system like this that is even close. I mean, price-wise, and I've seen them all. And guys, I tell you, the biggest snag right now is this whole buzz going on with cloud systems, because the cloud systems are so ridiculously clumsy and slow. You know, the biggest name in all of this, as far as a competitor goes, is probably our competitors are companies like Lightspeed, DX1. I'm just going to think of some of the companies that are out there, but their systems, when you start using them, you literally count, you know, you're waiting and waiting and waiting every time you're trying to change screens or you're trying to do something. And we have a massive migration of people coming off those systems and getting on Commander. We have very, very, very few people that go the other way. So our dealer base is growing exponentially, and our infrastructure is certainly set up to handle it. We've got really great people, a great team in tech support, and you know, we're like I said, we're not a stock symbol on Wall Street. We're family owned, and we will remain that way. So you're going to always be dealing with people that have the ability to make decisions on your behalf or help you. When you call in for help. You know, we do get overrun from time to time in the tech support area. You know, we've got a decent team of guys back there, but the program is solid to the point I'm looking at our phone lines right now. I have 2 other phone lines lit up. One guy I know is doing an install, and there's one other line on tech support. So what does that tell you when you have 3,000 systems out there and you only have 1 tech line going? To me, that's a good day, you know? So all I need really from you folks after the demo is, I think I know how many users each of you need. Please email me and just let me know your time frame. I want to put a price quote in your hands. If you're ready to move forward, give me your time frame for implementation. Obviously, this is the time of year where it makes the most sense to implement a system so that we can get you installed and ready to go for the new year. We can delay your start date for your maintenance if you want to delay it and say, well, let's go ahead and get the system now, but we're probably not going to start using it until the 1st of the year. I'll just push your maintenance start date back so that it doesn't cost you anything. We get a little bit overrun between, you know, December, between now and New Year. Last year, I think we wrote about 80 deals, 80. and we had to onboard all those dealers in a short period of time. So the sooner you guys pull the trigger, you know, if you're planning on doing it by New Year, consider, you know, turning in an order sooner rather than later. And we can certainly delay your support billing for you so that it doesn't cost you a penny more to do that. Obviously, you'll also have the benefit of the tax write-off if somebody needs that, although I'm not going to sell it on that basis. I just think it's a good time of year. Every year we go around in a cycle, and when we get to the end of the year, this is the right time of year to do business with marine dealers specifically. So, thanks for your time, guys. Are we good? Everybody have their questions answered? I do have a recording of this meeting if anybody wants that. I'll compile it. Feel free to ask for a copy of it if you care to punish yourself and sit through it again.
Just different aspects.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just needed to know if your monthly fee for, you know, having Commander, we now are paying, you know, for access for those types of things and tech support, whatnot, to every single, you know, that we're a dealer for. Are we still going to have to pay the $100 for you and your price updates and all of those individual for their updates, like
well,
Snap-on for Yamaha?
I don't know who else you're paying money to, Teresa.
Snap-on for Yamaha parts.
Yamaha has some automatic billing that they do on your parts bill that includes Parts Manager Pro as an EPC.
Yes.
And, you know, that EPC integrates with Commander, but that gives you image data and it gives you other data that we're not providing. So, you know, we're going to integrate with that piece, but no, we're not saving you any money from Yamaha per se or from Mercury. I wish it were that way.
Yeah.
But as dealer management systems go, and there's probably folks in this room today that have used other systems, well, they will attest to the fact that our maintenance is ridiculously low for what you're getting in return.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree.
Ideal, for example, charges the same amount we do for maintenance, but then they also charge for price updates. And they don't really say a whole lot about it during the demo, but if I'm a Mercury dealer and I need 12 updates just for Mercury alone, and that's if I don't do weekly updates, it's 75 times, that's the low point, 75 times 12. Now, let's say I'm spending $900 and I've got 6 or 8 different companies that I'm getting, let's go 7 conservatively. It's very, very common that you'll be spending $6,000 a year just on price updates.
Right.
So the fact that we have a flat monthly fee for price updates, tech support, and software updates, because they will come back and sell you their new version of their program a year from now.
Yes.
And that's happening everywhere. And so our business.
Trust me, I believe your $100 a month is well worth it. I was just hoping maybe we could get rid of some of the other.
Yeah, I wish too. Yeah. So that's, I mean, you won't need a price book from anybody else. You know, you're going to get a price quote from me, guys. If you haven't seen our price quotes yet, I'm hoping most of you have one. But if you haven't, you're going to have a second page on your price quote that looks like this, okay? And in this page, you can select the price books that you need. And I think I have Tohatsu spelled correctly on this one, hopefully.
Cool. Yeah, I don't have that.
But if you need this, I'm going to be sending it to you after the demo. So this will have your specific pricing based on the number of computers that you're going to be getting. Integration pieces, the Quickbooks integration interface is going to be taken off at the bottom, the red number in the bottom right. So you will have that as a discount. Then you will have a page in which you can say, these are the price updates that we would like to get. So if you're Land and Sea dealer, you'll check Land and Sea, Sierra, Mercury, Evinrude, Yamaha, and so forth. Now, for those of you that stayed till the end of the demo, because I don't make any money off this, I'm going to give you something for free. So everybody pick up their pen and make sure to take a note of what I'm going to give you right now, okay? You may already know about this, you may not. But very recently, there's a product that I got approached at the Land and Sea Show in Vegas. Feels like a month ago, maybe it was longer than that. But this particular product is called Sonar Pro. And Sonar Pro is a product offered by, it actually stands for the Sierra Online Application Resource Guide. So Sonar, it's a product offered by Sierra, and you as a dealer or a boat dealer can get a login to Sonar Pro. Now, what this does is, let me go ahead and log in here.
I'm already using it.
And they've really done a great job, and we've also integrated with it, and that's why I'm going to mention it. Someone already has it. That's good. So talk about it. Do you like it?
Yeah, I do. I do.
The idea behind this guy right here is to actually search for product, and this is the screen that you're going to want to get to. And actually, you can get to it without creating a login. To be honest, if you just go to cstarsolutions.com, let's do it that way just to show you guys so you can get to it right now. So you go www.cstarsolutions.com. That's the website. See it up there at the top, cstarsolutions.com, and you click into it. That will bring you to their website. Then right here in this little blue bar, you'll see a thing that says Sonar right there. So you're going to click on Sonar. When you get into that page, there's an orange arrow right here pointing to the right to see the resource guide. So we're going to go ahead and click there, and that's going to bring us to this page. Now, in here, we can search by the OEM part number, if we know a Yamaha part number or a Mercury number or whatever, and we're trying to get a crossover to a Sierra number, we can do that. I don't have a Yamaha number, so I'm just going to put in an 18 dash because a lot of their product starts with 18 dash. And let's say here we have a gear housing kit. You'll notice they have pictures of the items, which is really nice. They also have the details on the item, which is going to give you the part interchange. So had I known this to start with, I could click there, and this is going to show me that this item actually is Yamaha outboard, right? So I could fit the Yamaha outboard. So if I was Yamaha and I took this part number and I was coming in looking for the item, and I'd been back at the beginning here, I could have put in the Yamaha number as an example, and I could have done a search. It would have come up and showed me, well, there you go. There's your Sierra number for that. I could see the picture. And then they also have an option here to add it to a pick list right here, pick. So if I go ahead and add that to a pick list, I can send that item, the Sierra item, over to my Commander work order. And of course, we've got some cross-reference stuff in our program too. So this is something that's free. And so why not contact them, get a login, or just bookmark. I don't see a huge advantage yet to being on the Sonar Pro, because there you can see the login up here at the top to Sonar Pro. I just went through their website to get to this. If you want to set up a login, you have to email them and just ask them for a login, and you can earn points and so forth. There's something else going on that you can try to evaluate what I don't know. The gentleman in the room that's using it, what's the advantage to the Sonar Pro versus just using it this way?
I really don't use the Pro. Well, I do, but I don't see the advantage. If you're selling Sierra parts, they have them onboard rewards programs and stuff like that are extra to that website. I just got some fancy new camera equipment.
Well, there you go. See, if I click on the model number here, guys, I can pick the actual engine. I can choose the brand if I wanted to. So I could type in Yamaha or whatever if I choose Yamaha just as an example. And then I could choose a year if I knew a year that I was looking for. And I could do a search that way. And then I would get a list of the different outboard motors like this, and you can kind of see the motor listing here, and you can go next, next, next. So if I was looking for details on a particular motor, they will show you on the left-hand side parts for this engine, cooling system, drive parts, accessories, and so forth. And so you can go in there and you can click. I clicked on cooling systems, and then I get my cooling system parts, my impeller pin, and so forth. So lots of really cool, and they're building this thing very, very rapidly. This is the first year that they've had it where I think it's actually worth showing, but we've integrated with this, and I'm amazed at how many dealers don't know this exists yet. So I'm just letting you know as a little bonus for attending the demo.
Steve, are you familiar with Nautical Software Solutions?
I've heard of Nautical. What do they do?
Well, I run their M Shop, which is the program that I'm using right now for all my invoicing.
I'm very familiar with M Shop because we've done a lot of data conversions from M Shop.
That was going to be my question.
Yes. So the answer is yes. I can get the customers and inventory and stuff out of M Shop.
Great. Fantastic.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for your time. Any other questions, and we'll let you go?
Oh, I think I'm good for right now.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you real soon. If I don't talk to you before Thanksgiving, my goal is going to be to get everybody a price quote before the end of the day today. If not, you'll get it real soon. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you.
You too, Steve.
All right, folks. Thanks for your time. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.